JJ, did you know that today is Joe Walsh's birthday?
No, but my Maserati does 185. I lost my license, now I don't drive. Some people will tell you to play it safe, but we're here to tell you to go all out. Welcome to the All Out Blitz. I'm your host, JJ Wenner, and I am joined by the ravishing raconteur himself, Doug Orth. And tonight on the show, Doug is going to share the insight he has gained from watching the film and diving into the analytics from Week 11. So let's jump right into this, Doug. Sean Payton has seemingly found his QB in Denver. Now, Bo Nix had his doubters, but most have come around. What did you see in Week 11?
Well, okay, so Peyton has stated on multiple occasions that he needed to see only about 15 throws during Nix's private workout for the team before the draft to be sold on him as Denver's long-term starting quarterback.
Okay.
Now, there have been contradicting reports since then that Peyton had Nix ranked as highly or higher than overall number one pick Caleb Williams and just as highly as number two overall pick Jaden Daniels. Regardless of who you want to believe or which report is correct, there's little doubt that Peyton was confident that he had his man for the foreseeable future. In his draft profile this spring, I noted among many other things that Nix consistently gets a great read of the defense and has exceptional ball placement on short and intermediate throws, leading to consistent YAC production, yard after catch production.
Yep.
On the downside, he appeared to be more of a see it and throw it passer than an anticipatory one during his college days. And that's par for the course now in college football, especially with all the spread attacks. They're almost most of the guys that come into the pros now seem like they're see it and throw it. There's not a lot of anticipatory passers. Anyhow, it seems clear at this point that Peyton reached a similar conclusion to the same ones I did when I reviewed his film, and he's addressed most of the negatives I identified in his time with the Knicks. While it is true that two of Nix's 4 touchdowns in Week 11 came on receiver screens, therefore fitting the pre-draft narrative that all Nix does is this assistant quarterback and all he does is throw behind the line of scrimmage, which, if I recall, it was something. You could go back. We could both go back into our first shows here. I think it was something like 30% of his throws were behind the line of scrimmage. It was an ungodly number.
Right.
Several plays from the Week 11 game prove Peyton is meeting Nix in the middle and by giving him defined throws while also maximizing his strengths. Now, I highlighted 2 in the article, and we'll tease the article like we usually do. This is the Fantasy Points article that dropped earlier today. Please refer to this. Use this as a helper as you listen to the pod. So the first play I identified was with 10:49 left in the first quarter. Marvin Mims goes in orbit motion. For those that don't know what orbit motion is, it's motion, but basically you're motioning from right to left in this case, right to left, and then you circle back around the quarterback, basically to where you're going. It's a clear for defenses that are not disciplined or don't have disciplined eyes. It's easy for everybody to just follow the pretty little thing that's, especially if he's a fast guy, just get caught up in the orbit motion. Okay, so we call that eye candy. So I'm going to repeat myself now. With 10:49 left in the first quarter, Marvin Mims goes into orbit motion from right to left to create eye candy for the defense. With so much of the attention going to Mims, and then Jaleel McLaughlin, he's sitting to the right of Bo Nix. He runs what's called a wheel route, which again is that's just more, in this case, eye candy. But you're going to, chances are, if there's 3 linebackers, 2 of them are going to follow Mims, or at least take a false step that way, and the third one's going to have to follow McLaughlin because guess what? He's running toward the end zone. This is within 10 yards of the end zone. So you got eye candy taking at least two players. Maybe I didn't look to see in particular who he was, if these guys were safeties or linebackers. But my point being is all three guys on the second level of defense were hollowed out. One followed McLaughlin, and the other two guys followed Marvin Mims. With all that being said, the defense lost their focus because Nate Adkins, who goes kind of like does a quick, I'm pretending to block about 2 or 3 yards off the line of scrimmage, and then he runs just a shallow cross, goes in untouched for a 12-yard touchdown. Great example of a this is their first drive. Great example of a play caller clearing, just giving his young quarterback a confidence throw and saying and just making it easy, making quarterback easy, which good play callers can do. The other play I highlighted in the article is an example of the incredible growth Nix has made since his college days, his college film, or maybe an example of what he was not allowed to do at college. Again, I talked earlier about college quarterbacks coming into the pros being see it and throw it kind of guys. Nix was the epitome of that. So on this play, again, we have motion. I believe it was from right to left. This was not orbit motion, but this is just your typical motion, right to left. And you know how it is with motion. If there's a shift, more likely it's zone. If a guy is following the guy across the formation, that tells you it's man. So this was a case where the player followed the receiver all the way across the line of scrimmage, which is a good man tell. Okay, so the clip I used it was a 16-minute clip. I put in the article the timestamps for this play, and this one was at like 5 minutes. I think it was 5:18 for what it's worth. So, but this is one that Chase Daniel, former NFL quarterback Chase Daniel, who now works for The Athletic, he noted in his analysis in the link in the article. Nix, from the time he's dropping back, he's identifying the safety, Jesse Bates. I think he's all-pro safety, or at least he's been a one-time all-pro, if not multiple time. But he's taking this drop, he's looking straight at Jesse Bates, who was to his right. Okay, so he knows the coverage is man based on the motion. He's identifying the safety, and the whole time you can tell once you know the result of the play, you know what he was thinking the whole time. But what Nix had to do here, he had to throw the ball over at least one. There were two linebackers that he had to go over, but one that actually dropped. He had to drop the pass over the linebacker and beat Jesse Bates on basically about a 30-yard throw. And the 30-yard throw is going to, he threw a seed, but those still hang in the air a little bit. And to watch the play and see that he beat him by a step, those are pro throws. There's probably no more than 10 or 12 quarterbacks to play in the league at any time that A, have the confidence to make that throw, and B, have the ability to make that throw. So we're already talking about a guy who has the confidence and, believe it or not, the arm strength to throw those kind of shots. He threw it in between the safeties. The one safety had kind of went off to the left, but my point being, threw it over the linebackers in between the safeties, and also gave Devon Bailey, who was the one that caught the ball, gave him a good enough throw that he could pick up a little bit more after the catch. Those are the high level ability of that throw is just indicative of what Peyton must have saw and just how much progress he's made in the last few weeks. So I talked about that because I think, although it should be noted that Nix has played one more game than most quarterbacks have had this season. He's played 11. Most of them have played 10 because of the buys. It's stunning to see that Nix leads the league with 45 deep throws. That's 20 plus yards in the air. Only Josh Allen at 57.8% and C.J. Stroud at 60.6% have targeted their first read less than Nix at 60.8% among qualified signal callers. And I'll get to why that means something in a bit here. The Nix ranks fifth in the highest average time to throw, 2.77 seconds, and fourth in average time to sack, 4.3 seconds. All of these metrics that I'm just saying, average time to sack, average time to throw, the relative lack of first read reliance, all those are suggest that Nix is comfortable letting the play breathe and confident in his ability to escape pressure or navigate the pocket. Again, not something that you might expect for a quarterback that made 60 college starts, but not something that you would expect from a rookie, no matter how many college starts he made. What say you about Mr. Nix?
Well, as you can tell, I know a little something about eye candy. No, I don't know. Like, I heard your description. I'm not quite sure I understand the play. Yeah, I don't trust Sean Payton. I like what Bo Nix is doing. I mean, you look at his finishes. Ever since they played the Jets in week 4, he hasn't finished below QB 18. It's funny, that's the last time the Jets played defense as well. But yeah, I mean, there seems to be a gray area of QBs right now where I don't know what QBs are. Like, QBs who used to be perennial top finishers are no longer finishing as top finishers. Like, but is that, I don't know. It's just like, that's the season. So I'm excited to see what Bo Nix continues to do. I know down the stretch, he has a pretty good schedule. So if you have Bo Nix, you get Cleveland, Indiana, and Cincy, maybe Cincy in your championship game. That's awesome. So definitely go out and pick up Bo Nix. Although he's probably already picked up, right?
Yeah, I think he's picked up in all my leagues now. So yeah.
So what do you think?
Yeah, I can
for fantasy.
I can make this short. I included him on my FF of Today article last week, which was highlighting players that I want, non-elite players that I want on my roster for the fantasy playoffs. So I summed up my summation. There you go. I summed up what I said in the fantasy points article this way. Thusly. You like that one, Leslie? While it may feel risky, while it may feel a bit risky to put a lot of faith in a player who is considered the 6th best prospect at his position. I mean, I'll try to do this from memory here. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, and JJ McCarthy. So no one wants the 6th best player, especially not inside the top 15 picks, right? At one position. That's what I mean by that. So somebody who was considered the 6th best prospect at his position just over 6 months ago, as I highlighted in the article, Nix is proven to be a quick study, and he should be trusted as a fantasy starter against all but the best pass defenses in the NFL at this point. And as you kind of already hinted and alluded to, there's not going to be too many great pass defenses left on it. There's not too many great pass defenses left on the schedule.
All right, sir. Well, before we get to the rest of your players, let's get a word from our sponsors and keep grinding this season with IDP Plus. Visit idpplus.com and for a limited time, get 20% off any subscription with the promo code PROPS. Get access to our tools data, our IDP articles, our offensive articles. And don't miss out on our subscriber Discord. Go to IDP Plus and start your march towards fantasy glory today. Now, Doug, punt returner Kyren Williams delivered for the Rams down the stretch last year, but we doubted if his good fortune would continue this season. Well, he's currently RB9, but I think I still have some doubts. So what does the film from Week 11 show us, Doug?
Well, I think all that punt return work is starting to finally catch up with him. Has he returned more than 5 punts this year? I don't even know if he has. If he's returned 1. Anyway, head coach Sean McVay has a well-earned reputation for being a coach who leans on one running back. And I'm going to give you a little history lesson, kids and JJ. From Todd Gurley to Sony Michel to Cam Akers to Darrell Henderson and now Williams, McVay has typically had no problem riding his workhorse until the wheels fall off. But I'm going to ask, are the Rams nearing that point with Williams, or is he the victim of something else, such as a slight shift in philosophy or offensive line play? Now, for those who may not have any Kyren Williams shares or may not be paying that close of attention to the week-to-week minutia, I don't think he's finished any higher than RB20 over the last 3 weeks. And if he has, is like an RB19 maybe in there somewhere. I don't think he's scored in 3 straight games, but I'll get to the point here shortly about why he was worth mentioning in this article. I think what's clear is Williams is not the same back this year that he was last year. Last season, and I'm going to repeat these numbers, so bear with me, but last season he posted an explosive run rate of 3.9%, a missed tackle forced rate of 0.21, and yards per carry before and after contact well over 2. This season, those marks are 1.4%, 0.11, 2.02, and 1.91. It's 21, and this is one that you can do without writing anything down. His 21 missed tackles forced through 10 games this year are not even half the number he recorded in 12 games last year, 49. So let me repeat all that information for you. Explosive run rate of 3.9% last year, down to 1.4% this year. Missed tackle forced rate of 0.21 last year, down to 0.11. Yards per carry before contact was 2.27 last year, down to 2.02. Yards after contact, or yards per carry after contact, 2.75 last year, 1.91 this year. Why did I emphasize that one last? Because yards per carry after contact is usually a good sign of what the running back is doing. It's not yards before contact is not always just a line play stat. I mean, the running back has some control over that too. But if the yards before contact is high, that gives you a pretty good impression. It gives you a pretty good idea that the line is getting some movement off the line of scrimmage. What a running back does after contact is usually a great sign of what he's bringing to the play. So put that all together, Williams is not running the same as last year. I think we can say that with some confidence. So what gives? It is virtually impossible to predict what a coach is thinking or when he will make a change. And I'm not saying that's going to happen here because it's been well chronicled how much Sean McVay loves Kyren Williams. I'm not saying that we're in the midst of Blake Corum overtaking Williams. I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening this year. But week 11 marked the first time since at least the Rams week 6 bye that Williams' opportunity share dipped below 85%. And that it was at 71.4% last week. This one you'll like too, JJ. Over the last 3 contests, only one of Williams' 52 rushing attempts has gone for at least 15 yards. His yards per carry before contact over that same stretch is better than it was last season, again indicating that the line play is doing, or at least improving than what it was over the first part of the season. But his yards per carry after contact is lower than any other time frame we mentioned up to this point. So last year, first half of the season, whatever. And that number is 1.83. Again, and we talked about this throughout most of the season. You want your yards after contact to be at least 2. Williams hasn't done that for the season, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse over the last 3 games. Okay, to be fair to Williams, and I try to do this. I try to always point out the here's how you can see the positive and the negative, and try to. So, to be fair to Williams, his offensive line has been a revolving door for most of 2024. Only right guard Kevin Dotson has played every snap. Every other projected starter up front has missed at least 2 games, and 2 linemen have missed 7 games. He has even missed Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, each of whom is an excellent run blocker that has missed significant time this season. So last week, Williams averaged 5.7 yards per carry. This is just straight yards per carry. This isn't before or after contact. So you're saying he's trending up. Now, why are you talking about him in such a negative light? Well, it came against the Patriots' middle of the pack run stopping defense. Like I said, 5.7 yards. That was the first time since the week 6 bye that he topped 4.2 yards per carry. However, even that comes with a caveat. I mentioned he had an explosive. I think his explosive run rate was something like 1.4.
1.4.
Yeah. Okay, that one run was this 18-yard run he had against New England. That accounted for 21% of his rushing yards, and happened in part because a guy made kind of a silly, poor tackle attempt after about 10 yards. So I would expect 85-90% of the running backs in the league to have picked up at least 18 yards, is what I'm saying. All right, I've said my piece about Mr. Kyren Williams. What do you have to say about our favorite punt returner?
I mean, he's returned 2 punts this year.
Is that right?
So he has disappointed me greatly. No, my concern with Kyren Williams this offseason was injuries. I didn't know if you'd be able to last the season. And I also know that Sean McVay, as much as he loves giving one running back the bulk of the carries, he's not immune to just switching and choosing somebody else to be that guy.
Yeah.
So those were my concerns. Now, he hasn't looked great, right? The past few weeks, I thought he's looking a little less explosive as the numbers bear out, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we are seeing. But I know some people are excited. Our friend Drew Davenport put out a tweet an hour ago on Blue Sky that said, it's okay to put Kyren Williams on your bench this week against the Eagles if you have options, but after this week, he's going to smash to end the year. Saints, Bills, Niners, Jets, Cardinals. I don't know how much I think he's going to smash, right? I mean, except the Jets, and he'll run for 800 yards on the Jets because they're terrible. But I'm not confident in Kyren Williams. He's one of those players who if I had him, I'd start him, but it's not like I'm going to go out and try to acquire him down the stretch. It's not like I'm excited to see him in my lineup. Right. But I don't know. I get stuck on players. So what are you looking at him fantasy-wise?
Yeah, so the Rams have been in this – football is a small sample sport. We've heard that. We hear that year after year. First 7 or 8 games, basically during Williams' hot stretch to begin the season, if you want to call it a fantasy hot stretch, I think I remember something like the Rams maybe scored 11 offensive touchdowns over the first 7 weeks. It was some low number like that. Kyren Williams, I think, had 8 of those. Now over the last 3 games, they've had 10 passing touchdowns, right? And I don't think Williams has run for a touchdown in 4 straight, and he hasn't scored a touchdown in 3 straight. It's something like that. So what we're talking about are 2 extreme examples of touchdown regression. The first one was going to be regression to the passing game starting to carry their weight, and it could have been because the quality of the opponents, or at least what the opponent's weak strengths and weaknesses were. Mm-hmm. But in the first half, that was way too much Kyren Williams, and in the last 3 or 4 games, it has been not nearly enough Kyren Williams, at least for his fantasy managers, and the touchdown regression. Anyway, you asked me about what it means for fantasy. You mentioned this. You mentioned it in Drew's tweet. LA has a favorable schedule for its running backs over the remainder of the season once it hosts the Eagles this upcoming week. But I'm with you. It's worth asking how seriously McVay is considering the possibility of getting Blake Corum more involved. And the reason I was referring to you there was because he wasn't smashing, at least from a yardage perspective, and certainly not from an efficiency perspective. He wasn't smashing in the easier matchups this year. So anyway, when we consider Williams has yet to play more than 12 games in a season, and I think we're getting close to that here in, I think, next week Week 13 will be 12 games for the Rams.
Yep.
Since he has yet to play 12 games in a season, and that includes his college days, obviously you don't play as many games in college, but this is not a guy that has proven that he has any degree of durability. And then so you consider that he's never played more than 12 games in a season, and he's falling well short in some efficiency metrics. I think McVay has to be nearing a point where he has to be considering the possibility of continuing to ramp up Corum's snaps. Again, do we get past 70-30? I doubt it. But if you're living under the impression that Kyren Williams will continue to get 22 touches a game, 19 carries, three receptions, and that's pretty much set in stone, I think there's a real possibility if Corum shows anything this week and Williams continues to not show anything, I think we get to that 70-30. So those are my thoughts there.
All right, Doug, your mouth to God's ears. Here we go. I can't believe we're going to talk about this next player, Doug. I picked him up and I'm starting him this week.
Oh, dear God.
Our pal Brian Drake on his pod said that he picked him up and is starting him. So what the hell is happening with Marquez Valdes-Scantling?
Say it again. It sounds like you can't believe you're saying it just as you're saying his name.
No, I can't believe I'm starting him. I can't believe I have to. As I joked on in a Blue Sky post the other day that I kept refreshing the waiver wire to see where all the good players were. And I ended up with MVS. So
well,
here we go. Tell me about him.
That means that you were just at the low end of the waiver priority, right? The first 11 came off the board and you got number 12.
Something like that. Something like that, my friend.
All right, JJ, let me ask you, can a 30-year-old receiver break out?
No.
Okay. Well,
sorry. Who's next? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
There's always this chance something unlikely could happen, all right? With that said, we got to question why Valdes-Scantling has hit big in 2 consecutive weeks with Derek Carr in the year of our Lord 2024, when he was such a hit-or-miss proposition for most of his first 7 seasons while playing with your boy, Aaron Rodgers, and somebody else's boy, Patrick Mahomes, right? MVS's only comparable run during his distinguished, and this is why you picked him up because he has a distinguished NFL career. His only comparable run was during an extended stretch during the second half of the 2020 season. And I'm going to spout some useless lines now, but here we go. That during the second half of that season, he went 253-2, 4-149-1, 685-1, 287-1. Those were in weeks 9, 10, 14, and 17 of that year. As we have become accustomed to with Mr. Valdes-Scantling, he was blanked in 4 of the other 5 contests. And therein lies the problem. Not only has he never sustained production for very long, but he's also a player who has been viewed and used as little more than a deep threat by 3 well-run NFL teams. Before we go any further, let us consider the evidence of what he has done over the last 2 weeks for the Saints after the Bills, the third quality organization that I haven't mentioned yet to this point. They deemed him expendable just over a month ago. I think he had 2 catches in 6 games. It was something. No, he could barely see the field on a team that needed receivers. Okay, I'm going to go back to Week 10 here. On his first play in Week 10 against the Falcons, Valdes-Scantling, and this ticks me off when I see this. Valdes-Scantling ran past 3 Atlanta defenders who did not track the ball or attempt to make a play to knock it away on a 40-yard deep shot from Carr. It was like 3 guys were just – no one appeared to be sprinting, including MVS. No one appeared to be sprinting, but no one looked back for the ball and no one put their hands up. It was just, I guess MVS just caught a touchdown. It seemed like no one cared. It really, really did. On the next drive, MVS got behind cornerback Clark Phillips on a 67-yard bomb, and let's give him some credit. It was a legitimate play. I think I saw a little bit of a push off, but still 67 yards on a deep shot. Pretty good job. And then to cap it off, Valdes-Scantling and Derek Carr connected on a second touchdown 3 plays after that from 2 yards out. Okay, so that was second quarter. He's already at that point. He had I don't forget what he had in week 10, but it was something like 3 catches, 100 some odd yards, and 2 touchdowns. Right? He was done. That was it. No more targets after that. Right? Okay, so a fantasy manager will be looking at that and saying, well, I don't care if he did anything after that. He got me the production I needed. Well, I would say I've got a problem with the receiver who stands out during two drives and isn't seen from thereafter, right? Anyway, in week 11, the Browns busted a coverage assignment on a shallow cross, and MVS basically went untouched, 71 yards for a touchdown. And that was pretty much his fantasy day in a nutshell. Again, did he fill it up in the fantasy box score for you? Absolutely. Was he highly involved? Not at all. So I think I already know where you're going with Mr. Valdes-Scantling, but what thoughts do you have?
I think MVS is breaking out at the age of 30, and everybody should go out and trade anything you have. No, absolutely not. Derek Carr has a type. A lot of us have a type. Derek Carr does, right? From Ruggs, Shaheed, MVS.
Yeah.
He performs better when he has somebody he can chuck it deep to. So, I'm happy he has this. But there is nothing worse than picking up a receiver off the waiver wire who gets 2 targets, 2 catches on 2 targets for 85 yards. Yeah, that's great, but if they drop one, then what do you have? Right? I understand production, I understand deep shots, but if a guy's not getting the targets he needs,
yeah,
he's never going to be a reliable starter in fantasy football. It's not going to happen. And every week that you start somebody like that, you're just taking a shot. It might happen, it might not. Right? A lot of analysts would say, hey, that's a great guy for best ball. Right? That's a cheap way of saying a player who you never know when you should start them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's MVS. Now, I said I picked him up. I said I'm starting him because I don't have an effing choice this week. Right? Like, I look at my bench. You know, it shows your starters, then your bench. All my benches say bye. I don't know how it happened, but I only drafted people with buys in week 12. I guess I'm kind of buy agnostic, and I'm paying the price for that right now, my friend. But no, FMVS, just keeping with the initials. I don't believe in him. I don't believe in the Saints. I don't believe in Carr. I'm sorry. I wish them nothing but the best. I love the city, but I'm out. What about you?
Your MVS hate hurts me.
It makes me stronger. Come to the dark side.
Right.
How's my emperor? I should put up my hood. Hold on. There you go. There you
go. Deep breath.
Acting.
Even at his advanced age, actually older than us, if I recall correctly, even at his advanced age of 30, MVS is still one of the fastest players in the NFL.
Yep.
What he is not is a nuanced route runner who will threaten defenses at all 3 levels, nor is he a great contested catch player. He is what he is. He's fast. He's tall and fast, and he doesn't exactly use his tall, if you know what I mean. While his route participation rate jumped to an encouraging 76.7% from what it previous, that's why I say encouraging, because it was like in the 40s and 50s earlier. So encouraging in that respect, but we do want our receivers running about 80 to 90% of the routes, ideally, at least the alphas and the high end number 2s. His average depth of target over the last 2 games is 26.4. Okay. Now, you can look ever since ADOT become a thing. If you look through the history of high ADOT receivers, you're going to find very few high-performing fantasy receivers who had a dot of higher than 16, maybe 17, who finished top 20 or who were even remotely usable for more than a couple weeks. He's at 26.4. He is what he is, and I don't think that's changing. Just because he ran a shallow cross, just because he paid off on a shallow cross this past week, we're talking about he burned Atlanta, who is, for some godforsaken reason, fallen off the reservation in terms of defense. They shouldn't be this as bad as they've been here recently. And Cleveland has been a shell of itself for most of the season. So we're not talking about two high-level defenses right now, unfortunately. So my point being, with the 26.4 ADOT, while that's a great number when the receiver catches the ball, it's not a number that allows for any degree of consistency given how difficult the passes are to complete. You're hoping for – I'm going to say this. I didn't really give this much thought before I went down this road here, but if you're connecting on, I'd say 30 to 35% of your deep shots, I think you're probably performing above the league level.
Yep.
Okay. So MVS is batting a higher percentage than that right now, which means if we can count on regression to the mean, the winter is coming. Winter is coming. Yes. So
not in Pennsylvania. It was 60 today. But go on.
Fantasy managers, it's kind of like what you said, though. Fantasy managers are playing a high-risk game if they believe that defenses will continue to let MVS run past their corners when the offense as a whole is average at best. I've referenced the Kings Classic leagues that I'm in. Hey, if you have three receivers with three flex spots and you want a high upside option, go for it. Love it. If your best option, and this is nothing against Kayshon Boutte, for example, but he doesn't have a ton of upside. Okay, if you feel like you need that high upside, you don't care about the floor, just give me the high upside. Okay, pick him up over Boutte this week and throw him in your starting lineup. Other than that, he's a high-risk flex option at best, and the odds that within one of the next 2 weeks that he puts up 5 points or less in one, if not both games, I'd say that's better than 50%. Those are my thoughts.
Well, if you know me, Doug, I always go for the Boutte.
No.
Well, it is football season, Doug, and that means a trip to see your favorite team on the road, right? Well, with Expedia, you get the best prices when traveling, and we are thrilled for our partnership with them. Do you need a flight to Denver to check out Bo Nix? Maybe rent a car in L.A., see Kyren Williams, or a hotel in New Orleans? And maybe you too can catch a deep pass from Derek Carr. Go to idpplus.com/Expedia and build the best package to travel to the big game. Now, Doug.
Yes, sir.
While discussing Mike Gesicki a few weeks ago, I brought up Jonnu Smith as another example of an uber athletic tight end going to a high-powered offense and disappointing us. Since then, my prediction came true and Gesicki has disappeared. However, Jonnu has gone off. What are you seeing in his film?
Well, please let this breathe for a second. I just want to mention, though, that JJ, that we've talked about, or you've talked about being eye candy and that you go for the booty. So the things that are being revealed here.
This is honesty. I'm not going to lie about who I am.
All I'm going to say to this tweet here from Scott Barrett, maybe Arthur Smith was onto something. You think that's a possibility?
Nope.
No? Okay.
No, I shouldn't say that, of course.
All right. Well, I wanted to reference this tweet, and I wanted to have it posted just to give you an idea of, we're talking about Jonnu Smith blowing up, but what this offense is right now, right? I know Tyreek Hill's hurt, or at least playing hurt. You're going to have a hard time trying to convince me in what world this makes sense, right? So, all kidding aside about Arthur Smith being on to something, let's talk about the most likely reason that Jonnu Smith is relevant again. At its best, the Dolphins' offense is built on speed. We're not talking about 40-yard dash times of running backs, receivers, and tight ends, although that is part of the deal. That's part of the Dolphins' plan. They want as much speed everywhere as possible, right?
Absolutely.
What we are talking about is head coach Mike McDaniel running an offense that emphasizes getting the ball out of the quarterback's hand quickly. I know that's true for a lot of teams, but that's especially the case when Tua Tagovailoa is under center. With that in mind, here are some great metrics for you. Tagovailoa easily leads the league in lowest average time to throw, 2.2 seconds. You usually told at 2.5 seconds. You want the quarterback to have the ball gone in 2.5 seconds. 2.2 might not sound like a big difference, but when you consider most of the league is at 2.5 or beyond, and he's at 2.2, that gives you some idea. Because he's getting rid of the ball in 2.2 seconds, that has contributed to his league low pressure rate of 19.7%. Again, we've talked about quarterbacks who up around 40. He's seeing half as much pressure. And I told you about leading the league at average lowest time to throw and league low pressure rate. Those are for quarterbacks with at least 150 pass attempts. So we're talking about regular starters here. Getting the ball out that quickly means a quarterback will throw short more often than not, which again explains Tagovailoa's league low 5.9 ADOT. While Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle will see their fair share of throws in that range, an ADOT this low means that at least one running back and one tight end is probably feasting, and that's exactly what's happening in Miami. In six starts from Tagovailoa this season, Jonnu Smith is one of four Dolphins with at least 26 targets. Now, I think the numbers, if I recall, I didn't have this in the article, but Waddle is the one with 26 targets. I believe Jonnu Smith has 31. I believe Devon Achane has 33. I believe Tyreek Hill has 41. So you got, and again, what world can you tell me that Jalen Waddle is seeing fewer targets than Jonnu Smith, than a running back? I know Achane is great in the passing game, but what world is Waddle not getting more targets? With that said now, since Smith and Achane usually have the easiest individual matchups, and again, the priority, the emphasis is on getting the ball out quick, Smith and Achane have the easiest matchups, typically a linebacker or safety. It makes sense that they're seeing so much action. With that said, again, I think I've said with that said again a few times, Smith hauled in 6 of his 7 targets against the Raiders in Week 11. 3 of his 6 catches were behind the line of scrimmage and no more than 5 yards down the field, including a design play for his first touchdown that put him in motion against a linebacker. I believe it was against the linebacker if memory serves. Some linebackers are much better in coverage than others, but most of them are not going to be able to follow a tight end across the formation and one that goes in motion for very long, and that's what happened here. And I think he had to avoid some of his teammates as he was trying to run across the formation. That's not a recipe for success for any guy in coverage. So those are 3 targets 90% of tight ends should have been able to handle, right? Of the 3 intermediate or deep targets he caught, only one, and this was a corner route, could have been deemed a challenging throw and or catch. And it was a nice, impressive catch. He had to get his feet down, catch over his head before he fell out of bounds. Take nothing away. That was a nice catch. 15 of his career high 101 receiving yards came on a meaningless play to end the first half. Basically, I think the Raiders had 7 or 8 guys 20 or 30 yards back, if not more. And so Tua, and I think so Tua threw short, essentially short to Smith, and I think Smith got tackled at the 50. We're talking about end of the first half play where they had no hope of throwing a Hail Mary. The other 57 came on a blown coverage late in the fourth quarter, which resulted in his second touchdown. So what am I telling you? 15 came on at the end of the first half. 57 came on a blown coverage when no one was covering him. 72 of his 101 yards there were plays anybody could have made. I referenced the ones before. He caught 3 balls within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage where no one was on him. So we're looking at 5 or 6 catches where, again, 85 to 90% of NFL tight ends should be able to make those plays. Again, the only one I would say was the corner route that he caught as before he went out of bounds. That was a nice play. You were so thrilled about what Jonnu Smith has done lately. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, I understand with what you're saying as far as they're simple plays.
Yes.
Anybody could do it.
Yes.
With that said,
nice.
We don't get a difficulty score. This isn't ice skating.
You're right.
I don't give a crap if a catch is easy or hard, as long as the pass is made, the target is made, and the pass is caught. It's sort of like in football. You play hard teams, and you're not going to beat every hard team, and you hope to go 500 against the hard teams.
Yes.
It's the easy teams that you have to kick the shit out of every week. That's how you know you're a good team. When you can go, and this was the Patriots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, they played the toughest teams, about 500. But they would wipe the floor with the crap teams. They could just take care of them. So for me, what I care the most about when it comes to any receiving option is how many targets they're getting and is it consistent? And man, his targets have been consistent. You looked starting with the week before the bye, 8, 7, 6, 6, 4, 8.
You're right.
Listen, if a tight end can get 6 targets in a game, I'm starting it. I didn't do the research, but I'm pretty sure, there has to be some line, right? Like, if you're getting 6 targets, you're definitely catching 4 passes. You're getting 40 yards, that's 8 points. That's a tight end you can start in a league. And if he gets a touchdown, I don't know. So, I'm not excited about Jonnu. I'm not excited about most tight ends. Right. Hell, I'm not excited about most of my players in fantasy this year. But if they can get targets and put up a floor, man, have at it. What are your thoughts of him down the stretch?
Yeah, so I didn't take a look at his rest of the season, but
I'll tell you, it's New England, Green Bay, Jets, Houston, San Fran, and Cleveland in Week 17.
Okay,
all middle of the road
matchups for
middle of the road for tight ends.
You did say something I wanted to expand upon real quickly here, and it's a great point. If a tight end is getting 6 targets on the regular, okay, tight ends. Because of their shorter or smaller A dots and therefore easier throws, you hope anyway. You want catch rates of at least 65, almost 70%. Mm-hmm. So if you do the math there, that equals out or comes out to at least 4 catches per game on 6 targets. And if you're getting 7, then you should get around 5. Okay, we will take a 5 catch floor from a tight end pretty much all day, every week. So. None of what I said earlier is meant to take away from Smith's second career 100-yard game or his third career 2-touchdown game or effort. It's what it should do is provides perspective on a player who amassed 111 receiving yards on 12 catches and 16 targets over the previous 3 games combined. So understand this game is what it is. With that said, you said it, you nailed it too. I want my tight end to be regularly involved. If he's regularly involved, I'll take the hits and the misses that come along with it. Smith can be a yak monster, yard after catch monster. Believe it or not, his 250 yards after the catch ranks 4th among tight ends. And this is a person who was available on waiver wires. Heck, he's available on a waiver wire or 2 of mine right now, and he's the tight end 8 is. He's definitely tight end 10, top 10 tight end right now.
9, I think.
Yeah, 9. Okay.
PPR. Not 8. Sorry,
8,
you're right.
Okay. So again, this is a guy who wasn't regularly involved and then had crappy quarterbacking for half the year too. I know some of his good games were with that crappy quarterbacking, but my point being is that wasn't a very good offense to be a part of. But what I'm trying to say, too, though, is that his huge Week 11 performance was much more an indictment of the Las Vegas defense than anything he did. I mean, it wasn't – we're not talking Brock Bowers type of – he's dominating the game. Mm-hmm. All that said, given the state of the tight end position, he is a tight end one, albeit a low end one with a fair amount of upside, like the stuff that we saw in Week 11, and I think we saw it in probably about a month ago as well. I think he had another huge game in Week 6 or Week 7. So that in my mind, that is what he is. What he was in the previous 3 weeks, not what we saw here. But it's nice to know that he has that kind of upside. Now, I'll give you one other thing before we wrap up. I was going through my free agents, going through my waiver wire claims tonight before the show. And I think I've only seen where he's available. Jonnu's available in one league. And I have to seriously think about if I'm going to drop Tucker Kraft now to pick him up. Because we've seen Tucker Kraft kind of not fall off a cliff, but he hasn't been what he was the first 2 months of the season lately. And so those are the kind of things that I want listeners and the viewers to kind of consider. We have those. We might be all in the numbers for hours on a day and over the course of the week, but we still struggle with this stuff too. I still don't know what I'm going to do, but that's probably where Jonnu Smith right now is in the Tucker Kraft range.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Tucker Kraft had a good stretch there and then just seemingly went out of fashion. It's hard. I mean, we were also high on Conklin, right? 87 targets, 3 years in a row. Would he do it? He's not going to be anywhere near it. He's getting 2 targets a game. It's like MVS. You can't get 2 targets and be reliable.
But as a credit to your Jets, I think Aaron Rodgers is leaning on our boy, Kenny Yeboah. That's what's happening right now.
Hey, first of all, you don't even know my connection to Kenny Yeboah. My student taught at the school he went to, Parkland High School. He then went to Temple, where he was a proud member of a pipeline league that I was a part of that Tom Kislingberry started, which you drafted colleges and you got all the players. So Kenny Yeboah was one of my favorite players.
Oh,
but then he transferred out, which everybody did, which kind of wrecked the league is when everybody started transferring, but whatever. So go Kenny Yeboah. Happy for the boy. All right, buddy. It is time for tags, where we get to say goodbye and let people know where they can find us and any final thoughts that you may have. Doug, you're up.
All right. I've said pretty much my piece here. I'll probably get on Blue Sky eventually. I'm trying to think of a cool handle. But anyway, I'm still just on Twitter for now, at Doug Orth, as you can see here. The fantasy points article just dropped today. The fantasy points article that we referenced here for this pod just dropped today. My FF Today article, as usual, will drop on Friday morning, Friday afternoon. And this time I'll be focusing on receivers, tight ends, kickers, and defensive units that I want to have during the fantasy playoffs. What's going on with you, JJ?
Well, I'm at JJ Wenner on Blue Sky. I'm also at Doug Orth on Blue Sky. That handle is for sale, Doug, in case you're interested in purchasing it.
What a stupid handle.
Hey, listen, it's good to have. I picked up everybody's handles. So see me if yours is taken. Thank you for taking the time for listening or watching this pod. Thank you to Doug, of course, for all of his work. I say it every week, but please make sure you're reading his article on Fantasy Points, his content over on FF Today. It is top notch, and you will be a better fantasy player for reading it. You can catch me tomorrow night on the Rider Dynasty podcast with Jameson and Joe. And then next week, right back here with Doug, talking about week 12. So remember, when in doubt, go all out. Boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks. My Maserati does 185. It's one of my favorite songs. I lost my license.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.
I lock the doors in